the first day that I started there, I thought, God, this would not be for my child. And set about very slowly, and I mean very slowly, trying to bring in some form of modification to start with. After some time, the board decided that we would actually do some training with the residents, and this was not to make either elite athletes or Rhodes Scholars. We were just basic training. Basic things like picking up a spoon or what have you.
But you were instrumental in bringing that notion of training forward because you were at Geraldton at the time.
Yes.
And then you came down to Perth.
Yes.
And you introduced the concept to the board of, look, doing some basic training with the residents, and they came on board.
Yes.
But it was because the medical profession had, termed the kids mentally incurables. Everyone thought that these kids couldn't learn anything.
Well,
so
they were
considered
the experts.
Yeah, you challenged that back in those early days, and thank God for the
without
board.
knowing that it would work.
Yeah, and the board got on board. And what about when you employed our first psychologist, Neil Sinclair, and you introduced the 32 skills training, because that was the first time staff were actually getting trained formally.
That's right.
And they were exciting times, but they made a big difference in terms of training staff.
It was huge. It was huge. It was trying to teach people to pick up a spoon, pick up their cup, pick up anything or a block and put it in a box. And it certainly over a period of time, the staff understood in the end that, yes, not for everybody, but for certainly a big percentage of people it did. And so it went from there to then having a lot of live-in workshops for all manner of our families, supporters, ladies' Augs, everyone that was involved in Nelson.
What about the Ladies Auxiliary? I mean, they were a great bunch and a wild bunch of ladies, to say the least.
They
from the southwest and Perth.
Yeah, I used to love going down, take the bus down south, load everyone up.
But without the Ladies Auxiliary, you wouldn't have been able to employ Neil Sinclair, your first psychologist. No. And I think at the time Neil got employed as a psychologist, he got paid more than you did as matron.
He did.
Which these days would be unheard of. But
it
was just what you did to get something happening and change happening. But
the ladies were absolutely delighted to have a specific function that they could fund and say, we are funding this.
Because when you took over from Matron Kennedy, it was pretty well custodial care, so the residents all dressed the same, they were in big day rooms, they had the same food every day. And a lot of people had vitamised food. And so you started to introduce solids, and that was everyone thought the world was going to collapse because, you're going to kill people because we're going to introduce food and make people chew.
We got in a dietitian and said, well, we'll do all of these things. And anyway, we decided we'd change the menus as well, and so that those residents who could actually chew could have whole pieces of meat and vegetables, etc. And that was an exercise by itself. And then we had a cook who used to have a mincer. So we used to go from solid meat to minced up meat and vitamised meat. And she reckoned she had a bigger boob one side because she had to use the big mincer. And of course, Nelson didn't get any help from the Mental Deficiency Division, as it was back then.
That's right.
And some of their staff, they were marvellous. They used to come after work and do stuff for us and bring us second-hand wheelchairs and high chairs and things. We didn't have any equipment, couldn't get any equipment. And I rang the chief of the division at that time and asked him for help with one of our residents children who had life-threatening behaviours, and he told me I was the most unethical person he'd ever met, and that I had no business going directly to him. And I said, well, you're the head of the department, aren't you? Who else? And he said, the board should have gone, not me. Ultimately, we decided, after many years, to change the name from the Mentally Incurable Children's Association to Nelson Haven Association.
In later years, when you carved up the hostel so that residents were all in small groups and had their own dedicated staff, and so we weren't in big day rooms of 20 people anymore with just 2 staff trying to create a home. And you said to Graham Murray, the gardener, to come in and fill the hostel with plants. And he said, I think his words were, "You mad, matey," or something.
Yeah.
They'll get eaten and thrown around the place. I mean,
Well, I would have.
But you told him to replace them every day, do a round. And
Replace it.
I think that's a really important but fabulous story, because you said to him, I don't care. I mean, you tell the story. You told him to fill this hostel with plants every day.
And the furniture came every day, it was replaced.
But eventually the residents learnt to live with the plants.
They did, and sat in the chairs.
And sat in the chairs.
Yeah.
But, because of your spirit for perseverance, those changes occurred. Because of it, most people would have given up. And that in itself was, amazing, because it just changed the whole tone and tenor of the hostel.
So the Commonwealth got on board, and they wanted a couple of runs on the board. So they funded us for a couple of houses.
You first started off to do a test with Yorna Road.
Oh, that's right.
So, and I think, that was a stroke of genius, because I think you took 6 people from the government wait list.
Yes.
And you got funding for this trial home.
Yes.
And then you're able to take Nelson parents up to see the home.
Yes.
And I think, from memory, that just changed many people's attitudes.
It did. It did.
Apart from a small few, it really turned the corner on people thinking this is a better way. I love the story about when you asked the, I don't know what he was called, director of the Division of Intellectually Handicapped, or Authority back then, do you want to do the social trainers course? That's just fantastic, because that just shows your absolute determination and courage.
Well,
to persevere.
he said, no, we don't take nurses, and no, you can't do it. And I actually can't remember now how the hell I actually got into the course, but when he came in with the next intake, I was sitting in the front seat.
And he wasn't happy.
And he wasn't happy.
You said, look, I'm a registered nurse and people see you as that, but if we're going to employ social trainers, I want to be able to say that I'm also a social trainer.
That's right.
That you were on the same level.
Yeah.
So there could be none of this, well, you're a nurse, you wouldn't understand.
Yes.
You've done the course.
Yeah.
And I know exactly I'm a social trainer
and
too.
The unions.
And you told the unions to get
I
stuffed
said the
as well.
unions, if we employ a nurse, they'll work with the nurse, and if I employ a social trainer,
they're going to work with the social trainer.
Yes.
And that shut them up. Do you remember that we did that big safeguarding workshop in the 90s, and we had a live-in and Errol Cox ran it?
Yeah.
And we identified, I think it was 11 organisational characteristics and 20-odd client outcome characteristics. And when you looked at all these things, all those elements led to people having a good life. If we trained staff, if family had relationships, if we treated people with respect, if we had people living in good environments, and so it went on. That was groundbreaking stuff, and so that still endures today. And that actually safeguarding document, I know Caroline still has a copy on her desk. It is invaluable about the essence, the elements that you led us through that created Nelson to be what it is.
I was always a great believer in succession planning. Mm-hmm. Now, we had great staff over the years. Dear God, how some of those staff stuck to the job, really, I shall never know. People really worked their butts off, and we had great staff. So over the years, I was able to watch your empathy, involvement, and everything else with the and involvement in staff training, in the going to the lotteries and trying to get dollars, going to the Commonwealth and trying to get dollars. And I certainly acknowledge publicly that I could not have taken the organisation to where it's got today.
You remember when you came to work in your petticoat?
I do remember when I came to work in my petticoat.
And you had that black and white striped flowers, remember that?
Yeah.
And you always used to wear that with a black skirt.
Black skirt.
And I'm coming down the staircase and you said to me, look at me. I'm looking at you, I'm going, what? And you said, look at me.
Yeah.
I'm going, what? What am I? And so look at what I'm wearing. And I'm seeing the black and white striped
Oh, I
flowers.
felt such an...
And then I looked down and I could see these frills. And I went, oh my God, you're in your petticoat.
Yeah, but I didn't know. I had no idea.
You've been walking around the hostel and everywhere.
I'd been
in your
everywhere.
petticoat.
Oh dear.